The Caliginous Serenade is the fourth full-length album from Acerus, a Chicago, Illinois-based heavy slash speed metal, epic heavy metal, U.S. power metal band, which comes from Daniel Corchado of The Chasm, a former member of Cenotaph, and various other projects of his own making. Now, this fellow, he's been independent on a kind of on his own idea with his own label for a very long time, and he likes it that way. I think that the point is that independence is a very important thing to this artist, and that means that most anything that he's released since at least 2006 or so has been untouched by other labels and thoughts of other, artists or anything else, and really just takes into account what he wants to do. And I think that's been great for his development as an artist, as we found on the most recent The Chasm album, a very high personal standard with just overflowing ideas put into a record. And that's similar to the way I would describe the evolution of Acerus over the last 10 years, where we find the first album was more of maybe a group effort conducted by Corchado, and then the second record was him doing everything himself. And now with Tertiary Right and this album, they found kind of the right configuration of folks for the band. And they focused in on a style which is very much traditional heavy metal with a darker aspect to it. And something that reminds me of maybe a Fatal Portrait era King Diamond, early Satan, and maybe even the first couple of Iced Earth records early on, where there was that kind of maiden feeling to all of it, but there's still a bit of speed and thrash metal to it. And I would say there was a lot of power thrash metal influence on the Tertiary Right back in 2020, and this follow-up, as we'll find here, is a big extension of that sound and a much bigger record overall. So we'll step into a new song and start to point out the differences. So while the Tertiary Right was a very focused record that had two distinct sides, but definitely barreled down what it did best and stuck to it, this record takes quite a bit more chances with different pacing, different types of songs, and overall it touches upon their sort of signature on the first side, and then eventually works in some epic heavy metal and some slower songs along the way. And I think this is very well directed in terms of getting the most out of the vocalist and his range, which is very impressive. Getting fitting as many lead guitar solos as they can into each song, and harmonizing them in an effective way that's related to the song, but also bracing everything on the pretty much a signature style of riffing from the guitarist's own hands. And I think that really does differentiate it from a lot of the comparisons or suggested influences that they might throw in there, like Heavy Load or Manila Road. While those were distinct heavy metal bands in their own right, this is maybe more prone to runs in a different direction, to dual guitar compositions that clash in more so in rhythm than in lead. And I think this is a maybe the more kinetic side of Manila Road in the mid to late 80s is what you would expect as a comparison in some ways. But this is, again, more of a power metal record, more of an epic heavy metal record. I referenced Doom Sword and even Merciful Fate here, Warlord. And so there's a lot to experience here. It's almost a full hour. It's 54 minutes. And so this is a demanding listen, but it is still one of the better heavy metal records you're going to hear all year. I can almost guarantee that, because it feels like they found their zone on the last record, and now they're exploring more of the possibilities, and it makes for a very more fleshed out and full-fledged record here that feels like a classic heavy metal record in every way. And so they've hit an ideal here that is rare and is pretty impressive. So that's a big recommendation for me. I think the lyrics are pretty strong. I think the way they deliver them is pretty impactful. And overall, strong immersion on a very long record. It's rare that I can sit through a 54-minute traditional heavy metal record without having to turn it off, and so this was a good one and a high recommendation for me. I would say a very high recommendation. We're kind of teetering right on that cusp of greatness here, but there are a couple songs that might push that over for you, and when you check it out for yourself, it's out now. It came out last Friday. And go ahead and read my review if you like more of my thoughts and see what you think.
Necessary that no one